So if you're looking for a USB-C hub that does power pass-through to your laptop, has a couple of USB 3 ports, a USB 3A port, two USB 2.0 ports, has an Ethernet and two HDMI ports, this guy might fit your needs. Now the problem is it has extra ports, like this 1/8" mic and headphone jack that did not work for me. It also has an SD card reader and a micro SD card reader. Those didn't work for me on Linux or on a Mac. I have not tested the Displayport, but the two HDMI ports did work for me and the Ethernet port worked for me. So some of the ports work just fine. Some of the ports just don't work at all. This is a USB-C multi-port hub, also known as a small laptop docking station. I was sent this guy to review for free. They haven't paid me for my review, and my opinions remain my own. The MSRP on this guy was $55, but I've seen it with a 20% off coupon. So in the box we have the hub or docking station along with a small little booklet of instructions and telling you what all the ports are. Basically you plug this into your laptop, it's a USB-C connector, and we have a microphone speaker port here, the 1/8" audio jack. We have a power port where you can put in power delivery USB-C to charge your laptop. I believe it also might power some of the other USB hubs. And then we have two ports that are labeled USB 3.1 that are USB-C as well. And on the back here we have three USB-A ports. One of them is red colored and it's labeled USB 3.1. These other two are kind of the same gray color as the case and they're labeled USB 2. We have an SD card reader and a micro SD card reader. And at the end here we have a Displayport and we have a Ethernet port. On this side over here we have two different HDMI ports. So as you can see, this guy can support several monitors, Ethernet cable, several USB ports, card readers, and power going in to power your laptop. So there's a lot of ports here. It's a very functional hub. Now looking at the specifications for the video out ports, HDMI 1 can do 4K at 60 Hz at 10 bits, whereas HDMI 2 can do 4K at 30 Hz at 8 bits. So if you have a choice between the two, favor HDMI 1 because it has a faster speed, a little more bit depth for the colors. The Displayport is 4K at 60 Hz at 10 bits. It claims to be a gigabit for the Ethernet, 3.5 audio, the 100 watt input max for USB-C power delivery 3. It can read and write 10 to 40 megabytes a second and 10 to 30 megabytes a second for the SD cards. USB 2, it says 480 megabits per second, and then USB 3.1 up to 10 gigabits per second. Alright, I'm plugging this into an Ubuntu Linux laptop. It's found a USB hub, several other devices, so it's definitely detected. So it identified the drive, it tried to mount it, but it's failing with an exit code of 1. So this is not working to mount this drive and access it from my Ubuntu desktop. It might work with Windows or Mac, but it's not working out of the box with my Linux system. Now we're going to try out the USB hub. I'm plugging into the USB 3.1 USB-A port here. That worked correctly. My card reader is popping up just fine. Alright, we're copying files at a pretty good clip here. The speed is 150 megabytes a second, which is pretty reasonable. I think I've seen a little bit faster out of this guy connected directly to the computer, but not much faster. Alright, we're plugging into a USB 2.0 slot. Alright, we're copying these files over. The USB 2.0 slot is definitely slower than the USB 3 slot. We're being limited here to about 32 megabytes a second. So if you're trying to get the fastest speed, that USB 3.1 is significantly faster than the USB 2.0. So you might want to save these for things like, smaller cameras or mice, keyboards, things that don't need a lot of speed. Alright, so I've taken this into my utility room, plugged it directly into my cable modem. Okay, I rebooted my cable modem and it did assign me an IP address. And I am getting the full speed I would normally get with a direct Ethernet connection here. So I'm going to say the Ethernet port does work correctly with Ubuntu Linux. Alright, it detected my HDMI TV and linked up to it just fine. So I plugged the TV into the second HDMI port. It's also working with that one. Not able to test with two different screens exporting at the same time. I have also not tested the Displayport. Alright, I'm plugging a SD card into the SD card reader slot. And it definitely recognizes there's a card there. It's trying to mount it. It's giving me issues about not an MTP device. Failed to get interface. So it doesn't look like the SD card reader works with Ubuntu Linux. So when I plug in a micro SD card, I don't even get any indication that it's recognized the card. So the card readers are basically inoperable with the default stock Ubuntu Linux. Alright, plugging this into a MacBook. Do I want to connect the Genesis Logic USB 3.2 hub to this Mac? So we will allow that to connect. I'm going to try accessing the SD card when it's plugged into the MacBook. I'm getting nothing popping up here. So it might not just be Ubuntu, it might just be that the SD cards are not working. It's possible the hub needs to be powered before those devices work. So I'm going to test the USB power feed through. I'm plugging this into the USB C power input port. It's supposed to be able to support up to 100 watts. I only have a 65 watt adapter here, and my laptop probably won't even draw that much. But it is charging my laptop. It's currently at 44 watts. It's at the 20 volt level. So it's definitely able to pass through charging into your laptop. Now the micro SD, the SD card reader here, I'm going to plug in, and it does not appear anything is appearing on the Mac. I'm not seeing any extra drives show up. So I'm going to try a micro SD card instead. Both of these cards work fine on computers with other adapters. Yeah, so Macintosh or Ubuntu Linux, the SD card and micro SD card readers do not seem to work out of the box. They're just not working. I can't say if it's my particular unit or if they just don't work in general. So in addition to the micro SD and SD card readers, the 1/8 inch headphone and microphone jack is not recognized or working at all. I plug it in, Ubuntu Linux doesn't show any additional audio output devices. Now on the other hand, an active USB data headphone will be detected and shows up. So the USB hub at least is working. Alright, so I like the look and feel of this guy. It has plenty of ports. You have two of the USB 3.1 USB C ports. This guy is power in. It claims up to 100 watts. I've only tested 45, but it looks like it should probably go higher than that. We have USB 3.1A, and then we also have two USB 2.0A ports, which are good for smaller accessories, things you don't need a lot of speed out of. The Displayport I haven't tested, but I have tested both of these HDMI ports, and I haven't used them simultaneously, but I have used both of them, and they both work just fine. Got a gigabit Ethernet cable connected to that, and it worked fine. However, SD card reader and micro SD card reader never worked on two different computers, one Mac OS X, one Ubuntu Linux. So it was kind of recognized by the Ubuntu Linux, but it had some errors and when it loaded the card. Mac, nothing just showed up. So do not buy this if you're looking for the SD card readers to work, because I can't guarantee that works. I also can't guarantee the Displayport works, but at least HDMI works, so I'm assuming the Displayport probably also does. So kind of a mixed review on this one. It still has decent functionality if you just ignore these two card readers, but that's kind of, why you might want to buy a larger one of these, is to have something like the card readers.